Sure. So there's basically three reasons why you get rid of senior officials at the Defense Department. One is gross incompetence, negligence. They've really, really fallen down on the job in some demonstrable way, which I don't know that we've seen here. Second is just punitive, right? The president was mad at Secretary Esper. He was mad at these other officials. And even though he's, maybe on his way out, he just wants to stick it to them as a demonstration of what happens when you cross him. The third reason is you want people who will say yes to things that others would say no to. And that's the most concerning one. That's the one we all need to be thinking about.
A member of Congress echoing what people both inside and outside the Pentagon say are some alarming and sudden changes at the upper echelons of the Defense Department, including firing Defense Secretary Esper. Trump has also put top loyalists in there regarding policy and intelligence, a former aide to Mike Flynn. Another is a former aide to Republican Congressman Devin Nunes, tied to efforts to discredit the Russia investigation, plus a retired general who's expressed what many describe as Islamophobic views and even called President Obama a, quote, terrorist leader. Now, earlier today, the Pentagon confirming that Trump's acting defense chief, Christopher Miller, will bring on a senior advisor who is known as a Fox News regular with a history of controversial remarks and approaches to Muslims, Islam, and undocumented immigrants in the United States. We turn now to retired four-star U.S. Army General Barry McCaffrey, an MSNBC military analyst, a former member of the National Security Council. And on this Veterans Day, General McCaffrey, we fittingly begin with thanking you and all enlisted military members and veterans for your service. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, exactly. There's 18 million veterans out there, to include 300,000 from World War II. And we're proud of what we did for the country.
Amen to that. And so it's a fitting day, and we showed a little bit of the president emerging to do the memorial there. And this is the footage of that. So, General, I would say, obviously, if it were calmer times, we would have a longer discussion of that. But I begin on the news with you of your reaction to the replacement of the Pentagon chief and whether you see anything here related to the election that could be concerning or improper.
Well, look, Ari, I've been shot at a lot, been nearly killed a bunch of times. I'm not an alarmist. Try and stay cool under pressure. Mark me down as alarmed. I just listened to Senator Tim Kaine, wonderful, experienced, mature guy, say that this is just payback to Esper for not being a loyalist. I don't believe it. We are watching a setup of some people who are unqualified for office to be in control of the 2.1 million men and women of the armed forces. And I remind our viewers, the only one who can give orders to the armed forces is the president and the Secretary of Defense. This acting Secretary, Chris Miller, is a perfectly good, experienced combat soldier. He is unqualified for this office. The other three, one of them, a retired one-star Tata, is a dangerous man. So that team moving in, no one in his right mind would have accepted an appointment for 90 days. These people are in there to control a coercive institution of U.S. democracy. Watch out.
What specifically are you warning against, General? Do you feel, based on your knowledge of these individuals and the situation, that you have a credible reason or evidence to think that there could be an effort to enlist the military in something unlawful?
Well, first of all, I think there is zero possibility of the uniformed leadership of the armed forces, starting with the chairman, General Mark Milley, doing anything unconstitutional. It's not going to happen. So they're actually taking over the wrong agency. The federal government tools that could be used in an oppressive manner start with the Attorney General of the United States, the Department of Homeland Security, and federal law enforcement agencies, who, unless they get an order that's patently illegal, will carry out their instructions. So, the end of the story is, I don't believe in any way this should be minimized, or this is just a tantrum of a president trying to accommodate himself to the outcome of the elections. This is some crazy thinking going on inside that White House. The congressional Republicans have a huge responsibility now to speak out or privately go to the White House and tell them this isn't going to work. And by the way, it isn't going to work. At the end of the day, 20 January, the election will be sustained, and Mr. Biden and Vice President Harris will be in office. But we are in a risky situation right now.
I appreciate the nuance you're drawing both in what the limits are, but why you, given the great experience you have, do take this as more than just some petty squabble with one more cabinet officer. On the foreign policy side, we also wanted to get your insights. There's this report, quote, divisive Pentagon hire may rush troop withdrawals before Trump's exit. That's lawful policy, but concerns McGregor saying U.S. needs to pull troops out of Syria immediately, claiming America has no interest there, criticizing EU and Germany for being too welcoming to, quote, Muslim invaders. That's a quote. McGregor advocating for martial law at the U.S.-Mexico border, according to some interpretations, and CNN reporting advocating the use of deadly force as a, quote, deterrence of illegal immigration. The policy question to you is, are these the kind of things that the Pentagon can be involved in and be implementing Syrian policy itself without the president's sign-off? How much should we understand the policy process here?
Well, you raise a good point. With only 90 days to go, though, by the way, it's very hard for these guys to carry out any substantial changes in the Department of Defense. But they may well try. There may be contracting irregularities. There may be federalizing National Guard troops in sort of a measure of intimidation. McGregor, I know quite well. He's a defense intellectual. He's a very bright guy with some really extreme thoughts. I mean, the whole notion of martial law at the border, for God's sakes, what is that all about? This is a federal law enforcement responsibility, an immigration problem. It's not a criminal problem by and large. So, again, I go back to the thought, though, when if I was a CIA officer trying to understand what was going on in a third world country, and I saw this pattern of behavior, I would say the strongman's trying to take over the government and defy an election. And I think they're playing with that idea inside the White House. I can't imagine that Senator Rob Portman and even McConnell and people like this are going to disregard the Constitution. But I think that's the thinking that's going on in the White House right now, and we ought to be worried about it. And the Republicans in Congress ought to speak up and push back.